Hello, so today we are going to make our chosen animal out of clay. We're going to create a clay sculpture, and you're going to get a hunk of clay. And the first thing you want to do is tear it in half or cut it in half. So you can use one of the tools in your toolbox to cut it in half. I'm just going to tear it. And you're going to start with a pinch pot base. So a pinch pot base, you start with a sphere. So you're going to roll your clay and pinch this clay into a sphere. And I like to use my hand and curve it or cup it and use the palm of my hand to kind of pat this into a nice sphere. I'm rolling it in my hand so that I pat it all the way around. You could also roll it on your cardboard if you like, and you'll see you'll get some of the dried clay off of the cardboard when you do that, and that's okay. And you want to get a nice round sphere. You want most of the cracks or crevices or seams that you've created when you were making it, you want most of those gone. Not all of them, but most of them. And then the way that you make a pinch pot is you press your thumb into the sphere. You want to press it deep into the sphere, but not all the way through the sphere. So I'm going to press. This isn't very deep. My thumb is only right about here, and I need it to get a little bit deeper. And then you're going to pinch, and that's why it's called a pinch pot. Your thumb is in the sphere, and you use these 4 fingers to pinch the clay so that this hole starts to get bigger and this edge of your sphere gets smaller. So you can see it's getting skinnier here, and it's still fat over here because I haven't pinched there yet. And you're just turning the sphere and pinching all the way around so that you start to get a little pot, a little pinch pot. You also want to get deep down in the sphere, down here, and pinch. You want to push your thumb down and pinch around the bottom here along the edge, not just up here around the top of it. You want to get down deep because this would be the bottom, all the way around so that it's nice and even. And you don't want it thick, but you certainly don't want it too thin, so don't go crazy with the pinching. I would say the thickness around your pinch pot should be about the thickness of your pointer finger. You can see I'm starting to get cracks, so those are going to need to be smoothed out. But you want to start with a pinch pot. So once you get a nice pinch pot, you can feel the thickness as you go around, and where it's a little bit thicker, pinch. Where it's thin, don't pinch at all. So here's my pinch pot. It won't sit up because it has a round bottom, but right now I don't want to flatten it yet because I have to decide. Do I want to create a pinch pot and then add my animal pieces and this be a container? Or do I just want to create a sculpture that doesn't really hold anything, and then maybe I would put my pinch pot upside down? Alright, so I'm doing a fish. That was my animal for the whole quarter. Your animal might be a bear or it might be an alligator. And you could simply just do the face of your animal on the pot. And like if it was a bear, you would add ears and the nose up front and the eyes. Or you can use it as a container, and if you're doing a bear, you could add the head here and then the legs down here and a tail over here. I'm going to do a fish, and I'm not going to make this a container. I'm going to turn it over like this. And this pinch pot has to stay open. It cannot close. If you close this pinch pot up while you're working, it will eventually explode in the kiln because there'll be air inside. So right now I have a nice round pinch pot. Since my fish are long, I'm going to squeeze this and make this more of an oval, making sure though that this opening never closes. And I'm going to turn it upside down so that my fish sits flat on the table. So I need a top fin, so I'm going to create a slab or a pancake. So I'm going to pat this with my palm of my hand. I'm not using my fist and getting my knuckles because that would just make it bumpy. I want this smooth. I want it to be a fairly thick slab, maybe the thickness of your pinky finger. You don't want to make it too thin because then it'll be hard to work with. And then I'm going to make a top fin to go across. Now if I just put this on top like this, that's way too big. So I'm going to use a tool like a popsicle stick to cut a shape out for the fin. Now, if I cut this out and I don't like this at all, I can just wad this all back up, pat it into a pancake again, and do it again. But I'm going to look at this and see I kind of like that. I think that's a good top fin. So the first thing I want to do is smooth out the edges, because these edges that have been cut are going to be really rough when they dry and they're fired. So I dip my finger in the water so that it'll slide over these edges quickly and easily. And I can pull on these, I can bend these and twist these and get these just the way I want. Now I want to attach it to the top of my pinch pot, the top of my fish. And I can't just put it on here and smooth it because it might not stay stuck. So I have to do what's called scoring and slipping. I like to use a fork for this. You could use a popsicle stick. You could use the edge of a wooden tool, not a wire end tool. And I'm going to draw crisscross lines on the edge of my fin that's going to touch. And then right along the top here, I'm going to do the same thing. Crisscross lines across the top. And this is called scoring, when you scratch the surface of your clay. Then I'm going to dip my finger in the water, add a little bit of water to the score. A little bit of water to the score here. And then I'm going to press this on and make those two scratched wet surfaces attach and push together. So I'm pushing this down onto my pinch pot. So now I want to show you the bottom is still open, still an oval. I have my two side fins. So now I just need some eyes and I'm probably finished. So eyes, I'm just going to get two pieces of clay that are about the same size and I'm going to roll them into spheres. Now if you're going to attach eyes like this, you have to be very firm and score and slip. So I've got to score, crisscross lines. Okay, so if you are doing googly eyes like this, you really have to use the palm of your hand and push those firmly on there. And you can see this isn't quite a sphere anymore, but that's okay. It still looks like a sphere from the side. You really have to attach those because they are the first things that fall off as your animal dries. So any kind of googly eyes, crisscross, score and slip, push firmly with the palm of your hand. I put my hand inside the pinch pot so the pinch pot doesn't collapse and close up when I'm doing the googly eyes. But they're not quite finished. I'm going to use a round dowel rod. I could use a big round dowel rod like this and push those in, or I could use a small round dowel rod like this and push it in. I'm going to push that into the front of the eye to make it to finish off the eye. Now, at this point, I can be finished, but if there's time left in class, which I hope for you that there is time left in class. Once you get it assembled, I would hope that there's time that you could start to decorate your animal. So if you're doing a bear, you could take this tool, this fork tool, and scratch and create fur on your bear. If you're doing a fish like me, you can take a round popsicle stick. You can do a small one, or we have big ones. And you can press this into your fish, just the tip of it, and create a texture of scales, because fish have scales, and this is exactly what scales look like. So I would hope that once you get this assembled, you have time to add. And since the animals are symmetrical, most animals are, you need to do the same on both sides. Add some textural element to it. If it's fur, use a fork to add fur. If you have scales, use, like if you're creating a snake or something like that, or a reptile or crocodile, use this for scales. And it has to sit flat on the table. Remember, one of the requirements is that none of your pieces are falling off and that it will stand up on its own. So if you come to me and pieces are falling off, you're not going to meet the requirement. When you bring your animal to me, I will scrape your initials and the day you have art on the bottom or the inside of your pinch pot, and then fire this. We'll get this back to you, and then we'll add color. Good job, third grade. For legs, I'm going to roll out a coil. So a coil is like a snake. And I'm going to do a nice thick coil so that the legs are sturdy. Alright, and I'm lucky because since I'm doing a pig, the legs will be short and stumpy. So I'm going to use popsicle stick to cut this. Now if you want your animal to stand up on its legs, you're going to have to manipulate these, make sure they stay attached by scoring and slipping, and then you're going to maybe have to shorten some to get them to stand up. So I need to attach that to the front, so I have to score and slip. I'm holding my hand inside the pinch pot so that it doesn't collapse. Now I can add googly eyes, or I could just take a round dowel rod and add the eyes this way. And there I have my pig's face, and I've used the pinch pot as a container, so this can now be a container. And I have my tail and my legs are attached. It stands on its own. Remember, it has to stand up on its own. If I had made this head too big, it would topple forward. And we don't want that, because then that wouldn't meet the requirements. And any extra clay that you have left over, you always give back to me so we can use it with another class. And that's how you create an animal, your animal, using a pinch pot.